Hello, Chalk Dusters.
Hello, everyone.
Thank you so much for coming back again this week for our update on everything that's been going on at Indian Wells.
Yes, we're midway through. Very unusual, but the first round in Indian Wells started on a Wednesday, so we're only midway through. So very like a Grand Slam, but with a midweek start, we're only at the round 3 stage. So this week we'll be talking all things Indian Wells, discussing the conditions, looking at what's to come in week 2, a quick summary of the matches played so far, what that has shown. I'm going to then go on to a bit of a tactical focus on what I'm calling closing the gap. You don't need to win tennis matches. You need to make sure your worst tennis is as close as possible to your best tennis, if that makes sense.
Okay, so you don't have to win, you have to not lose.
You certainly, most of the match, have to make sure you're not giving points to your opponent, yes.
Okay, and shout out to followers. Little technical update on our how Chalk Dust is getting along. Thank you so much for all your followers, all your likes, subscriptions, comments. Really loving all of that. We're finding we have a very strong Filipino following, which is really nice. And mabuhay to the Filipino people amongst you. Thank you for watching. And we are finding that our home seems to be very heavily on YouTube as opposed to Spotify. So if anyone wants any more input from us, more you say, no, we can't take it. YouTube is your place, but we are of course going to carry on Spotify and on our website, chalkdustmedia.co.uk. Okay, enough of the town hall crying.
And we're back in situ. We've been on our travels, but we're back home from Spain. And for the first time in a few weeks, we're actually doing this from home rather than on a ferry or on location.
So if you look very closely, you might be able to see the drizzle through the windows as opposed to the sunshine we've been having and the beaches and things like that. So anyway, let's crack on, DTM. What's our first chapter about?
Yes, so Indian Wells, otherwise known as possibly the best event outside of the 4 Grand Slams. So sometimes people refer to it as the 5th major or the unofficial major because all the top players, whether they've had a recent injury or not, tend to turn out for this event. Possibly also because the prize money is only second to the Grand Slams as well. I think I saw nearly $25,000 losing in the first round. If you win 2 matches, you're looking at getting over $60,000. Money always appeals.
So I heard somebody say that the money for the doubles has trebled. I know there's a lot of fractions in there, people, but they have multiplied by 3 the money that they're paying for the people who play in the doubles. And apparently people like to play doubles there because it's a bit like a warm-up and they're at such high altitude and so hot that they like to warm up. Am I talking rubbish? Is this what you're hearing?
Yeah, I think what you're alluding to is the event they put on, which was a doubles event, a bit like some of the Grand Slams. They had a mixed doubles 10-point tiebreak event as part of the first week.
That one.
Put on big prize money for that event,
I see.
which is a doubles event, but I'm not sure the actual main draw doubles for the women and the men is 3 times as much.
Seeing it, the players who maybe sometimes might prefer not to play doubles are playing the singles, but playing the doubles in order to warm up, to get more practice time with sometimes some fairly random partners that they don't always play with. So that's just a bit of an interesting thing there because of the altitude, because of the different court, different court surface that they're using there. That's what I'm hearing.
Okay, Katie's obviously getting more into the actual tennis, which is...
Don't listen to me about the tennis, honestly, it's all just coming out my ears.
A pleasant surprise to me as she takes over with her tennis inside info. But we have to sort of fact check it.
Absolutely do.
So, yes, as Katie's mentioned, this is a desert location. So the air is very thin, but the courts themselves, the surface is very slow for a hard court. So very unusual circumstances because what players are finding is that they're getting to each ball. So if an opponent hits what they think is a winner, more often than not at Indian Wells, the opponent will retrieve it. Whereas on a faster court, the ball will be past them. So it's harder to hit winners. It's sort of pros and cons. From one point of view, you're getting to more balls. They're sat there ready to hit. You've got more time to hit the ball. So you get this sense of, great, I can attack because I'm getting a bit more time on the shot. But the air being thin means it's harder to control the ball when you actually go for that strike. So the players are getting to the shot and thinking, great, I can attack this shot. And then the balls are flying out. So it's a double-edged sword between feeling like they have more time and control and can really do damage with each shot, but then finding that the balls are flying out. And even in the first couple of rounds, there have been quite a few surprising results where players are struggling to adjust to the conditions. And it is a unique set of conditions that they don't find on most weeks on the tour.
Right, interesting.
So in terms of the draw, as I said, it's the 5th major and it has nearly the same number of competitors. So a draw with 96 players in it. A Grand Slam will have 128. All the players in a Grand Slam obviously start in the first round. This is slightly different. The top 32 players seeded into the event get a bye into round 2. So those 32 players are added to the 64 who actually play in the first round, which is where you get the 96 from.
And that bye is actually particularly helpful for the ones who haven't taken a little illness break, as a lot of the players did at the end of the Middle East swing a couple of weeks ago now. Ones who did play the Middle East, if they get a bye into the second round, at least then they've got a bit of a breather and they can be a bit more refreshed when they turn up because they've had a long flight again. I know I'm always on about keeping these women from being too tired, but it is a major factor. I wouldn't be able to play at my best if I was just off the flight.
And yes, and because of the nature of the world we're in today, a lot of the players are actually giving first-hand experiences live through their own podcasts. And actually the press conference and the journalists' involvement with players is actually becoming secondary importance because the players themselves are actually saying it as it is. So Jessica Pegula being a classic example, she won in Dubai and was due to play in Austin, and the turnaround time, given she had a 15-hour flight to get from Dubai, was just far too short. But rather than say scheduling was difficult, she wasn't going to be able to get there, she actually put out in the press, in the media, that she had an issue, a niggle with her knee. But on her podcast, she was honest to say it was a scheduling thing.
We've talked about that before, haven't we? And I think you actually predicted it last week and said you would eat your hat if Pegula actually turned up to her. Austin was her home tournament, so she would be very welcomed. And hadn't she won it the previous year? So she was also defending the points there. I got a tennis fact right.
You got it right, yeah. Home tournament because she's American. I don't think she lives sort of in
She's not Texan. Okay, a few of them are Texan, aren't they?
And it was won by a Texan, as we said last week. In terms of injuries, sometimes the WTA use injuries, and it's listed on the draw sheet. So if you're a real sort of tennis nerd, and you can go to the WTA website, go to the actual tournament you're interested in, you'll see a link for draws, and a PDF will come up. And at the bottom of the draw, it will highlight the list of players who've retired or withdrawn or haven't made it because of injury, and it'll list the injuries. And a lot of the injuries listed for Dubai 2 weeks ago were coded injuries, and they weren't really injuries, whereas genuine injuries are out there as well. So people were listed as having hip injuries or knee injuries. I think even against Sabalenka's name, there was an injury highlighted on the draw sheet, but she wasn't injured.
No.
The genuine injuries use the same terminology on the sheet. So
it's difficult to really tell which one is which.
It is, unless you're sort of aware of it. Sarah Bailey, who won in the Middle East, she gained an injury and she's not played since, genuinely injured. Eva Lees, a German, equally has had an injury, pulled out a game before the first round. Sometimes they pull out late, even though they're genuinely injured, because they get the prize money or they get a percentage of the prize money.
Of course,
if they don't leave, if they withdraw at that point. It's not deemed as being great etiquette, but all the players do it because it's their work.
And this goes back to the structural architecture of the tour discussion, which is happening behind the scenes at the WTA now, looking at restructuring. I think Pegula is the chair of that discussion. I'm absolutely nothing to do with that discussion, but I've written a blog series in case they want to read it. which is coming out weekly. I think we're on about week 3 or 4 this week, coming out on Thursdays. And I'm also doing this listen with mother version of it because I have no idea why, but it wants me to read it into the camera as well as publishing it as a blog. Don't ask me.
Brilliant.
No, I have no
You'll
idea.
be doing my job now.
That will be way too tough. Okay, so next subject is going to be.
So I've set the scene of Indian Wells. Qualifying started last Monday, Tuesday. The first round was Wednesday, Thursday, just gone, and we've had the second round completed over Friday, Saturday. So we're here sat on the middle Sunday with a week to go, and there are 32 players left in the draw. The highlights are that the big names are all still in. So your Sabalenkas, Anisimovas, Iga Swiatek's,
Eala's.
Coco Gauff, an additional Mboka. No big names have exited in that first opening round that they've had. Some interesting storylines. I'm going to mention an Australian, Talia Gibson, who's still in the event. She's in possibly the weakest section of the draw. She's got to play Clara Towson in round 3,
Right.
and potentially then play Jasmine Paolini. But
just for the numpties here, to be in the weakest section is a benefit. It's a good thing.
Yes, it's on paper, but on paper, her section of the draw and its fractions. So obviously before the quarterfinals, we're talking last 16, which is 8th. And then before the last 16, we've got the last 32.
Yeah.
In that quarter, Jasmine Paolini is the highest ranked player, number 7 seed. And on recent form, she has struggled for wins. So it's an opportunity for other people in that section of the draw, because if they can navigate their way through, the highest ranked player to beat would be Paolini, and if they beat her, they'd be into the quarterfinals, which for lower ranked players is a significant prize pot for getting to that stage, and lots of ranking points.
So you get ranking points, you get money, you get kudos, you get probably Instagram followers or whatever that it all involves. So headline is, it is good for a player that gives them more opportunity, an emerging player, to be in what you're calling the weaker part of the draw.
And I mentioned Talia Gibson because she qualified. She was outside the top 100 in the world. She recovered from match point down in her last qualifying match, got a reward by winning that match, getting into the main draw, $24,000 guaranteed. She beat Ann Lee, a top 50 American player, in her first match. In round 2, she was drawn against Alexandra, recent top 10 player, currently ranked number 11, and she beat her as well. So she's now in round 3. It's a massive boost to her ranking and to her prize money, guaranteed $61,000. And she's got an opportunity because she's playing Clara Towson, who's ranked lower than Alexandra.
Just to go back for the tennis numpties amongst us, when Dan says qualifying, I know we've explained this before, but in case there's any new listeners or viewers, qualifying means your ranking position doesn't naturally get you into the draw. You have to play like a playoff before the main event to get in. So when you say qualifier, in my head says, oh, that's really good if that qualifies. It means they're the lower ranking players and they have to actually play in as opposed to be given a seed into the tournament. And some tournaments, you get lucky losers, people who lose in the qualifying rounds go into the main draw because other people pull out or don't turn up or get an injury. And Indian Wells, it's part of what Dan was saying earlier about it being such it's seen as the 5th slam, seen as a really important event. They love it. They call it tennis paradise. And so because of that, there have been no lucky losers going into Indian Wells.
Just the one, because
just the one. Okay.
Pulled out last minute.
Right.
There was one lucky loser in the entire draw. Throughout Dubai, there was over 20. I think we've got nearly 24 changes to the draw because of players either withdrawing or being injured, retiring, etc.
Exactly.
And they were searching for lucky losers. Quite a contrast.
Yeah.
But so looking ahead to round 3 onwards, we have some crackers. And good news if you're an Emma Raducanu fan, because she seems to be on a...
Shout out John, whose messages us about Raducanu.
She's on a going streak, very happy, looked very confident in her first match, which she won easily. Mark Petchey sat on the sidelines, being a coaching influence, even though he's part-time. She's always played well when he's been in her corner, evidenced by her performance in Wimbledon last summer, where she beat Vondrousova, who'd obviously won Wimbledon, and she pushed Sabalenka so close. She's got a great match now in round 3 against Amanda Anisimova. So that really is, for British fans,
That's a big one.
a big match in the next 24 hours. This time last year, Raducanu had played Anisimova twice in 2025 at the
Right.
Australian Open and then subsequently at another event and won twice.
Okay.
Before Anisimova hit form in the summer and got to the Wimbledon final and went on to the US Open final and rose up the rankings,
Yes.
Raducanu had beaten her twice, and we're talking in the last 12 months. So
Okay.
she has the form to beat her. They're good friends off court. They have meals out together occasionally. So this match is certainly winnable, even though people would be surprised for me to hear that. I think for Raducanu, she's a fast starter. Anisimova lost the first set to Blinkova in the second round, who is a player who's been around a long time, is not a great sort of barometer of form in terms of Anisimova's level. So I think Raducanu could start fast, get confident. It's a free hit. She'll be playing with total freedom, just like she was when she was
Yeah,
young.
she's good in that
Young
situation.
and naive. The US Open played so well to win it. I think she'll win the first set against Anisimova. Thereafter, it's down to each player's mentality and belief in actually getting over the line. But I think Raducanu could really push Anisimova and certainly win the opening set.
Well, I'm going to make an offer then to the fan, the British fan. We will do a YouTube live of that match if you just ask us to. The Filipinos ask us to. There's thousands of Filipinos. Pinoy power, they message. And so we get up in the middle of the night and we do YouTube live for their matches, usually the Eala matches and Laban Alex. And I'm learning a little bit of Tagalog in order to be able to help my communication skills with the Filipinos.
I hope you're not over-promising there, Katie.
Why? What time does it?
Anisimova's the second match on
Okay.
in the night in America, so that follows the Coco Gauff Alex Eala.
That's the one we've already promised.
So another mouth-watering tie. Globally,
Okay.
Alex Ayala's popularity, as Katie said, is stratospheric.
It's something like that. It's a phenomenon, really. We didn't realize, we knew nothing about this. We noticed that there were huge queues. I think it was obviously Dan knew her as an emerging player, but me not being so knowing so much about that, I wasn't so much aware of Ayala. But what happened was at AO, they put her on an outside court in Australia. And it was a headline I saw in something or other saying, there are 7,000 people queuing up to see her in this tiny little court in Australia. And so we were sort of, that's funny, that's interesting. And so we started to talk a little bit about her. And now we've got this wonderful, warm, kind-hearted, generous. Honestly, if you want to get the good side of the internet, the kindness and the positivity on the internet, talk to the Filipinos. They're just a joy. And they massively love Eala. Even the ones who don't know anything about tennis, they just love Eala. And so we are riding the wave because we love her too. And they are so sweet to us. So, Brits, if you want to join in with this, the riding the wave of YouTube lives and all sorts of fun stuff, we will, if you comment and ask us to. But anyway, we'll be tired because we'll have just done the Eala golf match.
You'll have to be listening to this today in the next sort of 8 to 10 hours, I think.
I think they know they can't time travel unless Doctor Who is watching. And if he is watching, then help me with the TARDIS so that we can go back and do it if we
Yeah.
Okay.
But the top half has some great ties. I mean, if Raducanu beat Anisimova, she would play the winner of Mboko and Kalinskaya, which is another great matchup. Sabalenka then would probably be waiting for the winners of those four in the quarterfinals. If Sabalenka can get past Osaka, which looks like being a round 4 matchup, if they both win over the next in the next round. So the top half is very loaded. The bottom half looks like being between Pegula, Rybakina, Iga Swiatek, and the defending champion Mira Andreeva. I'm really seeing Andreeva like the conditions. She won her first match 6-love, which rarely happens. She likes the slower conditions.
Okay, that's good to know.
I think she may well be the dark horse in that bottom half, given that she's off the radar a little bit. And I can see her possibly pushing the likes of Raducanu and Pegula. But it could be a Pegula, it could be time for Pegula. She's won in Dubai, and that bottom half is very winnable from her point of view as well. So it will be interesting, but all the good matches for the tennis fans, the mouth-watering ones, are in the top half starting tonight.
And they're in the middle of the night. If you're in the UK, we are 8 hours ahead.
It's on the television if you've paid for the tennis channel, and it'll be on between 1 a.m. and 5, 6 a.m. overnight tonight.
We've had a few sleepless nights recently, I'll tell you.
So lots to look forward to. I'm going to go on now and just talk about that closing the gap, because as Katie says, we watched Alex Eala versus Diana Yastremska in the previous round, and we did a complete match and covered that match. And I talked about why I thought at the time Eala would win, and as it was borne out, she did win, because Yastremska is a classic example of having a huge gap between her best tennis and her worst tennis. So in any mathematical representation of data, if you were to do like a scatter graph with a line with all the winners sort of dotted in one part of the graph and all the poor unforced errors at the bottom, the gap would be huge on that representation. So classic example, you serve an ace, you win the point. With one shot, great. The worst in comparison is double faulting, because in 2 shots, 2 serves, you've lost the point. That gap is an example of the biggest in tennis. Another example would be hitting a forehand winner,
Yes.
a clean winner, or putting that same forehand shot into the net. The result is either winning or losing the point. So closing the gap between your best tennis and your worst tennis. Now,
just as an obvious thing, that means raising your worst tennis towards your best tennis. Because if you do it the other way around, that sounds to me like a surefire way of starting to lose. What you don't want to do is dampen down your good tennis so that it meets your bad tennis on the way down. You want to do your bad tennis up to your good tennis.
Yeah, so it sounds a little bit obvious when you're trying to sort of explain the headline, but with Yastremska, you could have edited her match, shown winners left, right, and centre, aces multiple times against Eala. You could have edited that and shown the highlights with all Yastremska's best tennis. But the fact was she lost. She served 8 aces, outnumbering Eala's aces. Eala, I think, served 1 ace, possibly 2. Yastremska 8. There's an example. Yastremska well on top.
Which is really a reason to not believe the highlights reel, a bit like so many things in life. Don't believe the headline.
But her worst tennis with her serve, Yastremska, 15 double faults.
And they don't show the double faults in the highlights reel.
Eala again, less than 5. I think it was 3.
Okay.
And there we have the difference in terms of closing the gap. The gap there between aces and double faults wants to be really close, or better still,
no double faults.
No double faults at all.
And lots of aces.
So many players are wasteful. They feel like they have to approach the match by winning it. And you really don't. So Elena Svitolina, as I've mentioned a couple of weeks ago, when she beat Coco Gauff in Dubai, it was a very long match and lots of points played, well over 200 points. Svitolina won 128 of those points, but 64 of those points, exactly 50%, were from Gauff's unforced errors. So rather than having a big swing between going for lots of winners and making some, but also throwing in all the unforced errors, Svitolina was very good at managing her game by limiting the errors, keeping her worst tennis as a very small percentage. She was down at something like 22 unforced errors in that match. Gauff was up at 64. So her worst tennis was, what's that, a third? It's virtually a third. A third. She minimized her worst tennis and therefore gets the ultimate result, which is the win. And I see so many players not understanding that game management and using a tennis brain. So tonight we're looking at Eala playing Gauff. She's obviously got to take advantage of Gauff's vulnerability on serve. So every time Gauff has a second serve, Eala's got to be thinking, I've got to keep this return in play. I must take advantage of this second serve
Yes.
and not waste that opportunity, because that is the best opportunity to win points when Goff's serving, which is half the game. At the moment, Eala's percentage of making the return, putting it back in the court on second serves is at 81%. Now that sounds like a high stat. To me, that's real room for improvement, because 1 in 5 second serve returns, which is the strength of her game, she's missing. Now she's probably missing a lot of those because she's going for a winner.
Yes.
But there is the payoff, and you've got to close that gap.
So
that
it's
makes
more
sense.
important to not lose than it is to win on these points. So you should just keep the ball in play and let the other person make the error. The aces and the double faults discussion that you've been having recently is a little bit like, which sounds to me as a tennis numpty, a little bit like the discussion that Dan had on one of the pods recently, which was the unforced errors to winners. So if you put the aces alongside the winners and the unforced errors alongside the double faults, you just want to maximize the aces and the winners and minimize the unforced errors and the double faults, or preferably exterminate them. We'll go back to doctor.
Yeah, if I was coaching, and I'm obviously open to offers, I would be really working on certain shots which I'm not sure the players really focus on as much as they should. So they all work on their first serves and they're trying to hit an ace. Very rarely do they go for a second serve ace. So there's a contrast in itself. If you're working on your serve and you're a professional, you spend hours every week on your serve, occasionally you should have the confidence and belief to go for the ace with your second serve.
Oh,
and,
you think every time?
and secure it. But I would, although I advocate that as an approach, as an element of surprise, certainly for some of them, because I think the mindset is a positive one. Whereas when I watch Goff and others who are struggling with their serve and double fault a lot, they're agonizing over their second serve. I would clear the mind, and by just adopting the first serve mentality, I think it frees them up and they're concentrating on being an aggressive, positive shot with a positive outcome, rather than thinking, I need to get this in, I don't want to double fault, which is a completely different mindset. Tricking the brain in that psychology, I think, is a good option. But the second serve, in having some margin of error with effect, in Indian Wells, it's so high bouncing, the balls are bouncing high, everything's exaggerated with the thinness of the air. And Yastremska, I couldn't believe how little variation on her second serve she used, and the number of second serves that just went long. We saw one serve nearly hit the baseline, and she's hired Pam Shriver to be her coach, and she sat there, and I'm like looking at the interaction. Coaches can interact with players now totally within the rules, and I'm always surprised by the limited interaction, as if any communication is fragile. It's like a short fuse. You might be setting the player off to negatively engage.
You might think maybe, I don't know, I'm not a coach, I'm not a player either. I'm imagining if on the court might be a bit too late for the coaching. No, I should, as the player, know what I'm meant to be doing. You, as the coach, is meant to have told me already. I should be fully prepared. Any in-depth discussion on the court makes me feel like I'm in the wrong place of my game.
Yeah, I think with the serve, there's 2 or 3 options with a second serve, and to be able to just sort of signal 1, 2, or 3, go to number 2, second
Oh, like
serve,
they do
go to
hand signals, like the doubles players behind their backs, don't they?
remind the player what works. And if you watch the best service in the game, the Sabalenkas and the Raducanas, they have a go-to serve for both first and second serve, and they're much more effective because they have clarity of strategy on those serves, and they execute it as a result more successfully.
And just to put the fluffy side of tennis into the Yastremska discussion and her serve, what I saw in that match was that the steely determination of Eala. She was like a glassy sea. There was no waves. Mentality. She was steely. She looked like actually she might be going down with a bit of a cold by the end of it, but you could hardly tell. She was strong. She was powerful. She was humble. She had all those features that we love to see in her. But I saw from she was upset with herself after the first serve. Now, I don't think you'd see that from Eala. No, I don't think, I don't think that ever really helps in somebody's game. I don't see them getting better from being annoyed with themselves or talking to their coach, or I see that as a downhill game.
Yeah, and those aspects are equally important, if not more important, the mentality, the temperament.
Yeah.
To gain it, to use that closing the gap, regardless of whether you're winning or losing,
Yeah.
the opponent shouldn't know. And
Yes.
that's what they are. There isn't a gap. There isn't a huge swing between emotions, and that's when we look at Raducanu's struggles. The opponent knows what she's thinking when she's struggling. The same with Andreeva recently when she's been in tears, showing you the emotions. A lot of people long-standing in sport, these were the basics from a generation ago, what not to do.
Tell me, will you say, obviously we're a WTA, but Nadal, what would he have been like in terms of that, the gap?
Yeah, I mean, the top players tend to be the best, at all these things.
Yeah. And that Rafa Nadal Academy then, where Ayala's been for so long, has been probably teaching her some really good mentality skills there.
Yeah. You sometimes know when a player's winning for all the positive body language
And there's nothing wrong with that.
and clear expressed body language, which signifies that.
Even indeed for
And there's no change if the match is getting tough and they're possibly struggling for it.
the crying, I can't bear the screaming at the player box. I can't bear it because I think it's not very cool, not very elegant, not very classy. But also, I think it's a massive sign of I'm about to lose. I don't know statistically whether that happens, but it's a weak sign, if you ask me. And obviously, I don't know a huge amount about
But yes, it's something to look out for when you're watching matches throughout the rest of the year, is how wasteful a player is. And what I look for, and what drives me mad if I'm watching a player,
and there's a lot of driving down mad.
is the wastefulness on second serve returns. And I said it before on the podcast, hitting the ball in the net is like leaving a golf putt short. And that, so hitting a second serve return, which is an easy shot for the player into the net, is wasteful. And that would be up there with a double fault or an easy smash. So those kinds of errors are doubly painful. Other errors, forced errors, the opponent's played well against.
That's tennis.
That's going to happen. You can't control their good tennis if they're hitting winners, and your winners take care of themselves. It's all those other points that if you can minimize to all those wasteful things that we've just talked about, then you will rise to the top. And it's the reason a player like Sinead Tartal does really well. She has no big weapon. She's not a tall woman with a big fast serve, but what she does is minimize her errors. She's not wasteful, and when she's
mentally strong,
best result is because all those what I describe as closing the gaps, she's very good at.
And I see Mboko doing the same thing. I see Mboko. That's one of the reasons I like her, for her strength of character, and she doesn't seem to have the histrionics.
Yeah, and I mean, people will be familiar with consistency, and that's a word used a lot, but I tried to describe it in a different way today. I think that makes a lot of sense to me. So watch out for that in the second week. We will be following up in a week's time with how the second week and who wins in Indian Wells. All that's left for me is a couple of rankings notes of work.
Game, set and surge.
So we're going to start with Talia Gibson from Australia, who's into the top 100 for the first time, 97th in the world. And to give you an indicator, that's roughly 800 ranking points.
Okay.
And because of her 2 wins this week, she's into the third round, as I said earlier.
Yeah.
First time in the top 100, new career high. That's worthy of note. And here, this shows you what one great week can do for you. If she won in Indian Wells, so there's a big ask, but if she won, go to over 1,700 points, which would jump Emma Raducanu. She'd be roughly 22 in the world.
I don't big push for it.
I don't think that's going to happen, but it's an example of how rankings can change dramatically.
I'm not sure if many of our listeners will have actually heard of her.
No, she's a big hitting Australian player, big serve, big ground strokes. She's getting a bit more time, as I've said, and it's a really good week for her. She's beaten 2 players, not in great form. It'd be interesting to see how she gets on over the next day or so against Lara Telford. But she's my Person on the up, rankings reset,
Game, set, and reset.
Paula Badosa. And this is probably due to her checkered history with injuries and her struggles not being able to build the fitness and the match fitness to gain momentum of results.
Right.
But she's now outside the top 100. So quite dramatic for such a big name, ranked 106 in the world. And she did play this week. She lost first round to Punton Saber in straight sets. So difficult times for her. But a big name who was once 3 in the world, semi-finalist at the Australian Open only 15 months ago, and now outside the top 100.
And used to date Tsitsipas. Just, fun fact for you.
So they're my 2 rankings of the week. Well, we're midway through. I mean, we could highlight Alex Eala for all her fans.
I think our listener is going to think we're obsessed. And we are a little bit, or I am.
But so I'm not going to name anyone this week because we're midway through the tournament.
Okay.
But let's hope Emma Raducanu can beat Anisimova tonight and get through to the latter stages of a big event and give some real confidence to all the British tennis fans for
that would be fabulous for the flag flying. Fabulous. And so is that a wrap for us today?
It is.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for listening. Thank you for all your comments, likes, subscriptions, everything that you're getting excited about. And we will see you again next week. Enjoy your tennis.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.